Let's talk about Pop Mart now. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I mean,
I know where this is going.
Oh, she's got to talk about it, right?
This week, we're diving into one of the most surprising investment frenzies of 2025. And no, it's not stocks, bonds, or even Bitcoin. It's plush toys. If you don't know what a Labubu is now, you will in just 15 minutes' time. So buckle up. It's blind box time.
Do you know what these are? These cute little furry creatures are called Labubus, and it's the latest item that's been taking over the internet.
Labubu has become a global pop culture sensation, but other Chinese companies are looking to give Pop Mart's famous dolls a run for their money.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones. Welcome to the Bloomberg Australia Podcast. Today we're talking about those toothy, wide-eyed creations from China's Pop Mart International. I'm of course talking about Labubus. They have gone from mystery blind boxes in Beijing malls to the hottest global collectibles, with rare editions selling for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. Investors, celebrities and everyday fans, they're all piling in, but the question remains, does it have Disney-level staying power, or are they just Beanie Babies 2.0? To help answer that and more is Bloomberg's Deputy Team Leader for Wealth Coverage, Ainsley Thomson, who's been following the rise of the Labubu economy. Ainsley, welcome back.
Hello, and thank you, Rebecca.
You, like me, Ainsley, have got kids who may or may not be into school ground trends, but Labubus really have become more than just the latest footy or Pokemon card craze, haven't they? Ainsley, what exactly is a Labubu and how did they become such a global phenomenon?
Well, I don't know about you, but for me, it was, 2 months ago, I'd never heard of a Labubu, and then suddenly it was all my children could talk about. And I'm sort of embarrassed to say it took me a while to get my head around what these things were. I couldn't kind of understand them. Are they toys? What exactly do they do? What is the point of them? I mean, is this how our parents felt about My Little Ponies and Cabbage Patch Kids? I have no idea. But to break it down, what are Labubus? I guess they are little dolls. They are fluffy. They're little monsters, and they've got lots of teeth. And they're pretty cute. And they're made by a Chinese company called Pop Mart. The most popular form they come in is keychains. And keychains is probably another concept that people won't have heard of before, many people won't have heard of. You hang them on your bag, and that is the form of Labubus that people want. Those retail at the Pop Mart stores for about 30 to 40 Australian dollars. They do come in other forms. You can get figurines. I made the mistake, bought my kids figurines. Apparently that was the wrong thing to buy them. You can get bigger kind of plush toys, but the keychains are the really popular ones.
That is incredible, because if you have children, you'll know that their school bags are literally full of these keychains, akin to like a janitor or someone who works at the county jail. They just love them, right? So per keychain, we're looking at about $30.
That's right. I mean, they have all these keychains, but they don't really have keys. They just have the chains, right? It's
correct.
It's bizarre to all of us parents. Okay, so the keychains are the really popular ones.
Right.
As you mentioned in the introduction, they come in blind boxes. And this is really important because it's kind of feeding this frenzy. People don't know what they're getting. And to make it even more confusing, some Labubus are rarer than other Labubus. So you may get really lucky and get a blind box with an extremely rare Labubu in it, which is, in theory, worth a lot more money than a run-of-the-mill Labubu. And the blind box thing is also feeding the frenzy because of the unboxing trend. You don't just open your Labubu, you film yourself and you put it on TikTok or social media. So that's helping create this whole kind of ecosystem of frenzy, of this viral trend that people want to be part of.
So this does seem like the perfect mix of fun and almost like toy roulette, if you'd like. Ainsley, how do you get your hands on one of these Labubu?
It's really hard to get hold of them. They have these limited drops, so the shops will have them in stock for, a really short period of time. It's so hard. We've been on a waiting list for ages. We've never even had the call. There's queues outside the Pop Marts. You can't just, roll up to a Pop Mart and expect to get a Labubu keychain. It's just not going to happen. And so that is also helping build this whole frenzy around them. The fact that they are so hard to get. It's, this artificial scarcity, which makes them more desirable, a bit like diamonds and airline tickets. We want it because we can't have it.
There is a new Pop Mart store here in Melbourne on Bourke Street Mall, and I have on good advice from the 12 or so adult, I might add, journalists that work in the Melbourne Bureau, that there is consistently a queue of about 20 people lining up out front trying to get their hands on one. Is it a similar thing over in Wellington where you are?
We don't actually have a Pop Mart store in Wellington. I'm sorry to say. We do. They are sold at some department stores here, so we can get them. In Auckland, there is a Pop Mart store. But when I have been travelling in Australia, I made a special trip to Pop Mart store in Sydney, and I also did so in Singapore. I sorted out. I was quite overwhelmed. I didn't, know what I was doing, and that's when I got the wrong Labubu. But anyhow, I tried my best.
It does sound a bit risky, from a parent view at least, but also from an investment angle, which is, of course, what you and I talk about all day long. Ainsley, what are collectors, or let's call them investors, actually betting on? Is it the rarity of these Labubus or their tradability, or both?
I think it's both. So people are trying to buy them at retail price, so, $30 to $40. And then they're selling them on the secondary market for a big markup. And so, eBay in New Zealand, the equivalent of eBay is called Trade Me. And all these secondary markets are trying to sell us these Labubus for sometimes really inflated prices. And on Trade Me, they were selling for around $800 to $900 a couple of months ago.
Wow.
So, it's a big markup. So people are betting on that. So there's those people who are thinking, okay, this could be a bit of a get-rich-quick moment, sell them on quickly on the secondary market. And then there's other people who are thinking, okay, this could be a long-term investment. Something like, rare baseball cards, which keep growing in value rather than losing their value. That, they're sought-after collectible rather than the more of the Beanie Baby type thing, which, lost its value once that market crashed. We don't yet know which camp Labubus are going to fall into. Is it going to be the rare baseball cards, or is it going to be the Beanie Babies?
Yeah, I know we've done some reporting on this recently, and some of the experts that we've talked to at Bloomberg say that, without that strong backstory, like your Pokemons and the Disney characters, Labubus could indeed, be a fad. What are the financial experts saying, Ainsley, about whether or not Pop Mart has the depth to sustain this growth, in the long term?
You're absolutely right. They don't have the backstory that the Disney characters have, or even, Pokemon, even Hello Kitty and things like that.
Yeah.
But in a way, they're kind of reverse engineering it. So there's now a Pop Land in Beijing, which is, a theme park for Pop Mart figurines. And they also have a film studio. So this could be something I guess it's likely that there's going to be a TV program or a film or something like that. I also think that there's a generational shift here. It doesn't necessarily make sense to us. We look at the Disney and the Hello Kitties of this, of the world, and think it needs a strong character link in this story. Whereas children and young adults are creating their own narrative on social media, their own story, and they're looking at it a different way to how we look at it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I am interested in bringing this a little closer to home. Kids at my children's school are obsessed with Labubu. One child that I know who is 9 years old can even spot a fake by sight. She's probably got a
Labubu.
A Labubu. That's I learned that just yesterday. Look, we're on a very steep learning curve. Let us just say that. Are the people in our market here in Australia and New Zealand treating Labubus as like just a fun collectible, or are people seeing it as an investment opportunity?
I think there's a bit of both. For the children, our children, etc., it's, it's for us parents, it's a fun way, we can make them smile, we can get them a Labubu if we can manage to do so. For other people, it is definitely, they're seeing it as some form of investment and a way to make money, or even a store of value for the future. There's also a really interesting thing happening around Labubus, which is the Labubu economy. And that is this kind of subset of industry that's being, derived from the actual dolls. We're seeing Labubu clothing for the dolls, not for the humans, for the dolls. There's a huge market in that. In China, and this, I don't know if this is happening in Australia or New Zealand, but it's certainly happening overseas, We're seeing people rent out their services to go Labubu hunting so people don't have to stand in queues, etc. So they'll do it for you. People can also rent Labubus so they can film for their social media, etc. So, there's this whole kind of subculture happening there as well, which I don't know that we really see around other collectibles to this extent.
When we come back, let's dig a little deeper into the fundamentals of Pop Mart, the founder, and why or why not, even if you're sat on Collins Street or Martin Place, you should be thinking about getting your mitts on one of these famous blind boxes. You're listening to the Bloomberg Australia podcast. Welcome back to the Bloomberg Australia podcast. You're here with me, Rebecca Jones, and this week I'm talking to Ainsley Thomson, who co-leads Bloomberg's wealth coverage in Asia Pacific. Ainsley, when we talk about alternative assets, fuzzy little guys with goofy faces and weird teeth isn't really the first thing that springs to my mind. But, that said, Pop Mart, just having a look at the financials, they're breaking records, right? Like the market value is around $55 billion and its founder, a chap named Wang Ning, has become one of the world's richest millennials. Could this be China's first real pop culture export success?
It is definitely looking that way. We've seen, big successes out of other Asian countries, Japan with Pokemon and Hello Kitty, etc., and obviously South Korea with K-pop and Squid Games and all that sort of thing. From China, bar some, breakthrough success of video games and some films, we haven't seen anything on the scale of this before, and it's really hit home in Middle America, which I think is, it's a big deal. People, there's a store opening in Ohio. Things like that, it's unexpected that this would be such a huge success, Middle America. And, it's been called organic soft diplomacy. So it's not like the Chinese state is behind this company as such and is, orchestrating this. But it is, this kind of cultural push by China, I guess. It's showing their creative side and it's winning fans the world over.
So if you are listening and wondering whether or not to invest in either Pop Mart or Labubus themselves, what is the key takeaway?
It's difficult to say at this point. I mean, we really can't say if it's going to be as we were saying before, the rare baseball card that just keeps growing in value, or if it's going to be the Beanie Baby. My colleague Karen Lee spoke to Gemma Dale, who is head of investor behaviour at National Australia Bank. And she said, unlike traditional assets like property or companies, which have an expected value, there's no expected value for essentially a soft toy. I mean, other than selling it to a charity shop, there's no kind of intrinsic value there. So it depends if it holds up on the secondary market. Well, yes, there is, but otherwise, it's a fad. And Dale is encouraging younger investors to ask the simple question, which is this a smart place to put your money? And I think, that goes a long way, doesn't it? And the old advice, which is always, can you stand to lose it? So if you invest, $50 in a Labubu, probably for most people, that's not such a big deal. But if you're putting in thousands and thousands, maybe it's, a more serious question.
And good luck to us trying to get that one past our kids. But in other words, enjoy the fun, but don't bet the house on it.
Absolutely.
If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to follow the Bloomberg Australia podcast wherever you listen. And for the latest on alternative assets, including our furry friends, the Labubu, and all the latest reporting from Ainsley Thomson, head to Bloomberg.com. This episode was recorded on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. It was produced by Paul Allen and edited by Ainsley Chandler and Chris Burke. I'm Rebecca Jones, and I'll see you next week.